Namaskar. Namaskar. Today we come back again to discuss further the biopsychology, the science of biopsychology. Now today we will try to look at biopsychology from the perspective of yoga psychology. Now, today the neurosciences have been discussing the subject of biopsychology as a particular branch of study, whereas in the field of spirituality and as advanced by Sri Ananda Murthy ji, the science of biopsychology actually deals with the subject of yoga in its pervasive sense. Now, this concept of yoga psychology takes into consideration all that has been taking place in the field of biopsychology. Now, as you are aware, this field of biopsychology is being studied by neurosciences primarily from the objective of understanding the nature and functioning of the brain and how this is related to human emotions, and these human emotions in turn influence the functioning of the brain, and which in turn influence our physiology. And the primary aim of the neurosciences and studying the function of biopsychology is to understand the functioning of these emotions so that we can understand and cure the neural diseases which are becoming commonplace today. The many people and a large population of the world is suffering today with these neural diseases. So there is a purpose in it. The purpose is to find a better to get a better understanding, thereby to find a cure for many of these diseases, which originate in the brain. And there is a relationship of these diseases with what is known as the functioning of the brain itself. That means the neurotransmitters, the way in which the neurons fire inside the brain, and all the functioning that is taking place. And as we understand, the brain comprises of what we call as the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system. And then there are internal parts of the brain, and there has been a detailed study of late in the last 20 years. Our understanding of brain has grown, has developed much beyond what was known earlier. And this understanding has enabled us to explore ways to find solutions to the problems that are facing humanity. Now, coming back to the basic purpose of today's discussion, today we are going to sort of look at what we have discussed in our previous discussions, previous lectures, and today we try to understand in a little more detail as to what is the implicit idea, what is that which yoga can contribute in terms of human welfare. Now, there are certain postulates, there are certain discoveries or certain concepts which have been given by Sri Sri Anandamurti ji. And it is very interesting to note that many of those concepts which were not recognized 20, 30 years ago are now being accepted through the neural research conducted by the scientists. So we begin with those postulates, those fundamental concepts, which are basically yogic concepts, the concepts of yoga. The first one we deal with is lymph, and you will recall those who have watched my earlier lecture that we have discussed lymph, the subject of lymph or lymphatic system, in great detail in my earlier lecture. Now today we look at what is that Sri Sri Anandamurti ji, the founder of Ananda Marga and one of the greatest spiritual masters of this age, taught us about the subject of lymph. Now, this lymph, according to Sri Sri Anandamurti ji, is the essence of human body. Now, this is the essence, and therefore, this essence is very vital from the point of view of development of human personality. Now, one of the important things that he has been talking is about the fact that lymph is the food of the brain. Now, first, many of you would understand, and those in the medical profession know it well, that lymph was not considered to be connected to the brain earlier. Nothing was seen. That means lymphatic vessels were not seen inside the brain. But now today, in 2012 and 2015 studies have proved that lymphatic system exists, lymphatic vessels exist in the brain. Now, Anandamurti ji's concept is that lymph is the food of the brain. Therefore, it becomes necessary that for the development of and proper growth of our brain, that means all that is related to brain, we must have constant supply and healthy supply of lymph. Now, he gives another concept, and that is that if we want to increase the production of lymph within human body, then some of the things that we need to do is like this. One, that we must take lots of green leafy vegetables, especially the stems of the leafy vegetables. They are rich in chlorophyll, and they are the ones who become catalytic in producing more lymph in the human body. The other point is that lymph production can be enhanced in the company of yogis. That means in those places where yoga sadhana, intense yoga sadhana is performed, where there is an assembly of such people who perform sadhana, whose most of their time is devoted to good thinking of the welfare of the humanity, and they devote time in spiritual practice, in yogic practice. It is those places which, according to him, are conducive to the growth and production of lymph within human body. That means any such place where there are negative vibrations, like where the people have a bad company. Now those places are not appropriate, are not conducive to the production of lymph in the human body. So this is another important aspect that he has touched. And we are finding slowly that there is an increasing interest and understanding in both these subjects. One, the vegetarian diet, especially the green leafy vegetarian diet full of chlorophylls. And the other is the company of good people, company of yogis who devote time in the spiritual practice, thinking good of the others, thinking of the welfare of the humanity. So this is one aspect. The other aspect that we have to consider about lymph is that lymph is the precursor of all the hormones. That means lymph according to Ananda Murthy is the raw material for all the hormones that are produced by the glands. That means lymph becomes the raw material, and therefore we need lymph in abundance, because human life is controlled, is dependent on the balanced hormonal secretion from the glands. So with this, we try to understand the third aspect related to lymph, according to which, as we understand, that without lymph, there cannot be a proper supply of the hormones for the glands. Now it is okay that lymph is also produced by a non-vegetarian diet. There is no denial of the fact, but the non-vegetarian diet creates excessive heat within the human body. And as a result, much of the lymph produced is wasted, gets converted into sperm. You see, lymph is the essence of all that we eat, the food that we eat. That food, after digestion, gets converted into rasaha. Ras gets converted into the 7 forms, and finally it gets converted into lymph. Lymph actually is available in 3 stages: lymph, spermatozoa, and sperm, or the semen. Now, because of excessive heat produced by the consumption of the non-vegetarian diet, much of the lymph gets converted into semen and is wasted. Therefore, it tells upon the vitality, the health of humanity, of human beings, the brain health, and also the physical health. Because all the health of the brain has a direct impact on our physiology. So essentially, we need lymph in abundance, and that lymph must be produced from the vegetarian diet, especially the green leafy vegetables, and more specifically the stems of the leafy vegetables. So these are the basic findings, basic postulates which the yoga psychology advanced by Sri Sri Ananda Murthy Ji is concerned. Now our purpose will not be served unless we go in much more detail, like we have to now understand in more detail as to what is that influences emotions, our emotions. Now we have discussed that emotion is a normal word which is being used popularly, And but the yogic word, the word which is used in yoga psychology, is vritti. And the vritti has wider connotations. The word emotion does not carry those aspects in its fullest expression also. But for the sake of common understanding, we continue to use the word emotion, but we will keep using vritti and emotion, meaning the same, carrying the same meaning. So, coming back to the emotions, and as we have seen in the past discussions, that our brain is related, is influencing the emotions. And how does the brain influences brain? We will understand this aspect further through some 5 specific points. We will see that those specific points take us to the better understanding of what is being called, what is being discussed. Now, the first point that we want to discuss is that our brain perceives and acts upon the emotional stimuli. That means if any expression is taking place, of emotional expression is taking place, then there is an external stimuli. This is how the concept is being understood. Now, as far as we have seen in the past, and we continue to hold the same view, that primarily the vrittis or emotions in each human being, that means we have carried forward the balance of these sanskaras. When we are born, we get the genes of our parents. Now, this is one physical transfer which is taking place. But when the mind occupies that fetus, that baby which is taking birth into the mother's womb, that baby's mind comes with a load, already loaded with the balance of the sanskaras from its previous journeys, previous lives. It has been coming. And it occupies a particular physical structure with that physical structure, and each physical structure has its own vibrational expression. That physical structure in which that mind comes in, that physical structure has a particular physical vibration, a particular wavelength. And the mind which it occupies also comes with a particular mental vibration, mental wavelength. And when there is a symphony, when there is a parallelism between the vibrational expressions of the mind and the physical body, when they match, and this matching is done by the creative force, the supreme creative force, the Parama Prakriti. She is in charge of matching the two, the mental vibrations and the physical vibrations. And when they match, then that mind occupies that body. And this mind comes with a load of sanskaras. And these sanskaras, in turn, give rise to the vrittis, which are integral to each human being. All of us come with those vrittis. And these vrittis, where are they available? Where they do live? Their expressions, they are in the chakras. That means our human brain, the central nervous system of human brain, which has got the brain, all the aspects of the brain, and the spinal cord. The spinal cord has got those chakras. That means right from the Mooladhara chakra, at the bottom of the spinal cord, the last bone, the coccyx bone, and as we rise up, Mooladhara chakra, then there is the Swadhisthana chakra, then there is Manipur, and we have Anahat, we have Vishuddha, and then we have Agya chakra, and we have Sahasrara chakra. There are 7 chakras. These chakras, or the nerve plexus, or the nerve plexi as they are called, these nerve plexus, the 7 chakras, are the places where the vrittis exist. And these vrittis, as we have seen, are distributed in chakras. As we have seen in the past, just to review the idea, in the Mooladhara chakra we have 4, then we have 6, then we have 10, we have 12, 16, 2, and in the Sahasrara chakra, these 50 vrittis become 1000. How? Because each vritti, each of these 50 vrittis have internal and external expression. So they become 100. And they have expression in all the 10 directions through the 10 sensory and motor organs. So these 100 vrittis express through 10 sensory and motor organs and become 1000. And these 1000 vrittis are controlled by the Sahasrara chakra. And as we understand, each of these vritti has wider expressions. Now, what is more interesting to understand in comparison to the neural sciences and yoga psychology is that as far as the neurosciences are concerned, their understanding about these emotions is like this. The most up-to-date knowledge about which there is not much diverse opinion is like this, that they consider there are 8 basic emotions. And those 8 basic emotions are what? They say that each of these 8 basic emotions are such that there is a one emotion, then there is the opposite emotion to that. Like if there is joy, then there is sadness. If there is fear, then there is anger. Anger is opposite to the fear. Sadness is opposite to joy. Similarly, if there is anticipation, and then the opposite is surprise. Then we have disgust, and the opposite is trust. So like this, these 8 basic emotions express themselves into many things, many ways. Now, according to these scientists, and amongst them, the most notable scientist whose ideas are generally accepted in the neuroscientific world is that Dr. Robert Plotkin. Now, this particular person's idea is that these basic expressions finally emerge and get multiplied in hundreds of those emotions. Because each emotion has got many varied forms. These 8 basic emotions ultimately multiply into many of them. Now, their idea of emotions is from the physical perspective, also from the psychological perspective. But their basic idea deals with physical and psychic structures only. That means they are not so much into what we try to understand from the perspective of real human expressions. Now, these scientists have a particular background in which they are studying this subject of emotions, whereas the yoga psychology studies this subject in much deeper sense. And it is not today the study that we are talking. This study has been taking place on this planet Earth from the time of Lord Shiva, which is historically about 7,000 years from now. So this study is as old as 7,000 years old. Now what we are talking in terms of neurosciences is a very recent study. This subject of emotion and its effect on human physiology, and this emotion has a relationship with the neurotransmitters, the chemicals from the brain. This study is of very recent origin, not more than 20-30 years. And there again, the idea that the neurosciences have tried to explore is from the physical perspective, from the perspective of human expressions, common human expressions. They do not deal with this subject in that deeper sense in which the spiritual yogis have dealt. As I told you, a very detailed study and a system of sadhana was practiced and was taught about 2000 years ago by Astavakra. Maharshi Astavakra is supposed to be one man who has gone into detail of this particular system and has called its system of sadhana as Raja Dhiraj Yoga. So Astavakra has done more detailed study what it has received from the Guru Shishya Parampara and otherwise by the grace of God, by the grace of Supreme Consciousness. From the time of Lord Shiva, what he has received, he has expanded that knowledge. And what is that which differentiates the yoga psychology from the biopsychology of the neurosciences? The fundamental understanding that human aspirations are spiritual in nature. As we find in the lowermost chakra, the four vrittis which exist are fundamental. What are those vrittis? What are those primary emotions? They are related to dharma, artha, kama, moksha. That means human beings essentially from their birth have spiritual inclination, ingrained, inborn. They have not made any effort, they have not made any choices about that. It is a fundamental part of their being. That means in the Mooladhara chakra, which becomes the foundational chakra of our structure. And that foundation has a combination of the physical aspirations, the psychic expressions, and the spiritual aspirations. Now, dharma here does not mean religion. Dharma has nothing to do with religion. Dharma is human aspiration, human urge to expand itself, to realize supreme consciousness and finite consciousness. So that urge in human beings. Now dharma actually is a Sanskrit word. There is no equivalent word for dharma in English language. And dharma is derived from dhri dhatu. The dhri root plus this dhri root gives out the word dharma. And dhri root means that which sustains us, that which sustains human life. What is that which sustains human life? What is that which inspires human life to continue itself? That is that want to realize that infinite supreme consciousness. That means that aspiration, dharma, has been defined by Sri Ananda Murti ji like this. What is that? Dharma is what? Bhuma, that which takes us to the Bhuma. That means that which takes us to the cosmological nucleus. That particular aspiration in human beings which takes us to the nucleus of the cosmological structure is dharma. It does not differentiate between human beings by virtue of their color, by virtue of the place they are born in, by virtue of their language, the language that they speak, by virtue of any physical differences amongst human beings. It is one and the same for whole humanity. Throughout this cosmos, dharma is one of the entire human race. So dharma is the first. The second one is artha. What is the meaning of earth here? Earth is normally considered to be connected to what is known as money. Normally money translates into artha. Artha also means meaning. So the meaning, that means the means by which human problems are solved, because human problems are solved largely in today's economic, in today's world by the use of money. Therefore, money is also called artha. But here, arth means that which solves our problems. So anything that solves human problems, any effort that solves human problem, that aspiration which helps in solving human problems is artha. Then there is kam. Kam is generally translated to mean sexual urge. But kam is not that. Kam is what? Kam is a physical expression that human beings have. It is the physical attraction towards this created world, this quinquil world, this world created out of 5 fundamental factors. This created world, when there is an attraction or attachment or aspiration to attain this physical world or anything of this physical world, then that particular expression, that particular expression is kama. This is the primary form of love. This is the physical form of love that is there in human beings. And this physical love gets elevated as we progress through good thinking, good meditation, and yoga into what is known as bhakti or devotion. So this physical love is transformed into spiritual love, which is selfless. The only aspiration in the mind of a devotee, true devotee, is the welfare of oneself and the welfare of the humanity. That is why the fundamental idea in the mind of a devotee is what? Atmokshartham. All that he does is for Atmokshartham, Jagat Hitaya Cha. His entire life is dedicated only for Atmokshartham, Jagat Hitaya Cha. So this is how we have to understand that this physical love is transformed into devotional love, where it is getting transformed from a selfish idea into a selfless idea. So, this physical love becomes spiritual love. And the last of the vrittis in the Mooladhara Chakra is moksha. So, this idea of moksha is what? This idea of moksha is that human expressions, all human expressions must be concentrated, must be focused at a particular point, and that point must then be expanded into this cosmos. It must become all inclusive, and eventually this all expanded mind must merge into the supreme consciousness, the Paramapurusha, which is the goal of human life. Realizing Paramapurusha in this human life through this physical body is the goal, is the only purpose of being born as a human being. So this is how we see that the four fundamental vrittis exist in the Mooladhara Chakra. And this idea is in divergence with the physical sciences, which is growing and developing also their biopsychological aspect as a part of their neuroscience. So there is no conflict actually. We are not looking at the conflicting idea. Here we are in the process of integrating what is being developed and understood by the scientific system. The brain was virtually unknown to human beings until the scientific studies started. And this idea that in this physical body, the emotions affect the physiology. The vrittis affect our physiology. Vrittis affect our cognition. Vrittis affect our feelings. Vrittis affect our behavioral response. All this idea which is being today understood by the study of emotions. And in that there is a vital part being played by the brain. And the entire functioning of the brain is so much integrated through the central nervous system, that means between the brain and the spinal cord. Between the brain and spinal cord, the CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, which connects to all the organs and tissues of the human body. And the autonomic nervous system, which talks in terms of the involuntary functions which are taking place within the human body. These three together complete the human structure. And these things are essentially influencing our thought process. Our emotions are directly affecting the human body. How do they affect? They affect through what is called the neurons, the neurotransmitters, which are chemicals in nature. Now these chemicals, there is much more activity taking place within the brain. Millions and millions of ideas are constantly impinging on the brain. The neurons are constantly at work. They are getting fired constantly. And these neurotransmitters, the chemicals as they are called, are the hormones which are secreted by various glands. And in these glands, when we talk of the glands, according to yoga psychology, the concept is that the pituitary, the hypothalamus, and the limbic system, and the pineal gland, this part is the primary part. And then we have the subsidiary part where we have the thyroid, the parathyroid, the thymus, then we have the pancreas, then we have the adrenal, then we have the prostate and the testes and the ovaries. So the gonads are there. The gonads which are connected to our sexual and reproductive system. So all these things together, they are so very vital. And the hormones which these glands are secreting are varied, are many. Because if we talk in terms of the Muladhara Chakra, which has got 4 vrittis, then each vritti has got a connecting hormone. Because the hormone influences. Now these hormones secreted by the glands have a particular nature. There is an optimal level of these hormones secreted from these glands. Then there is a hyper and then there is a hypo. That means there are excessive secretion of these hormones, or there are suppressed, that means less secretion of the hormones. And under those situations, the character changes. Then we get negativity. If it is optimal, then there is a balance. If it is excess, if it is less, then it causes physical problems. The same vritti, which in a balanced form will be conducive to human health, will turn into something negative the moment there is excess secretion or under secretion. Now this goes on until we go up and we find that if there is excess secretion of a particular hormone, now there are many hormones, as we have seen. And today's neuroscience scientists have discovered more than 100 neurotransmitters. Now, these neurotransmitters the number is increasing day by day. And it's going to take quite a long time before we will be able to really understand the true nature of these things through scientific study. But it is now well established. There is no doubt about that particular understanding, that all these neural sciences also agree to the idea that these hormones, these neurotransmitters, which are secreted from the glands. Now, in the physical structure, as we have talked of primary glands like the pituitary, the hypothalamus, and the pineal, now these are the ones which are the controlling glands, which control all the glands which are in the lower parts of the spinal cord. That means pituitary gland is here, hypothalamus is also a part of the brain, limbic system is also a part of the brain, and so also pineal gland, which is connected to the Sahasrara chakra. These primary glands control all the lower glands or chakras. The glands in the lower to pituitary are, as I told you, are thyroid, then thymus, then we have pancreas and adrenal, and then we have the prostate and ovaries and testes. So this is how all these glands, and then there are many other glands also. Then how do these neurotransmitters actually function? The neurotransmitters which are being released by the pituitary or hypothalamus through the pituitary into other glands are received. These hormones are received through what they call receptors. So there are receptor sites. The receptor sites attract. The hormones are secreted into the bloodstream. And from the bloodstream, these hormones travel to the receptor sites and influence that particular gland. So there is a very, very complex integrated system operating within human body under the control of the brain. The brain is the primary controller of everything. So in the past, I must tell you, I mean, this is this has nothing to do with the subject that we are discussing, but then there was a time when in the Greek civilization, they did not consider brain to be of any use. So when mummies were stored, then they would remove the brain through the nostrils and throw it away, because they did not think brain had any purpose. It was only much later that the healers and the scientists there in the Greek civilization thought it to be worthwhile. And much later, when the scientific development has taken place in very recent times, that people started thinking about brain. But even in the recent times, they did not consider brain to be an integral part of the human body, because the immune system was connected to the rest of the body, and it was thought that the immune system had nothing to do with brain. Brain was independent, was protected by itself. It is only recently in 2012 that they got a confirmed study which proved beyond doubt that lymphatic vessels exist in the brain. Thereby, they have a immune system connected to the brain also. So anyway, this is just to create some better understanding of the whole thing. Now, we have seen that the brain chemicals dictate our mood, the emotions. And as I said, our emotions are very many. Just to give you some idea about these emotions which have been studied and understood by these scientists, many different emotions are listed like this. For instance, they talk of affection, anger, angst, anguish, annoyance, anxiety, apathy, arousal. Then they have boredom, confidence, contempt, contentment, courage, curiosity, depression, desire, despair. They have disappointment, disgust, distrust, dread, ecstasy, and entertainment, envy, euphoria, excitement, fear, frustration, gratitude, grief, guilt, happiness, hatred, hope, horror. Then they have hurt, hysteria, indifference, interest, jealousy, joy, loathing, loneliness, love, lust. Then they have outrage, panic, passion, pity, pleasure, pride, rage, regret, relief, remorse, sadness, satisfaction, self-confidence, shame, shock. Then they have shyness, sorrow, suffering, surprise, terror, trust, wonder, worry, zeal, and jest. So these are the so many numbers they have tried to understand in neurosciences. These are the varied forms of human emotions which are influencing us. And these human emotions are the result of what? The result of the brain chemicals which are dictating to form our moods, because our mood is formed by the emotional influence. And when we talk of emotion, what is it? It influences the cognition, it influences the feelings of our mind, it influences the behavioral response of ours. So these chemicals have a wide influence on our human personality. That is how it is being said that these brain chemicals dictate the mood. Now, how a particular brain chemical is secreted in optimal quantity from a particular gland or not is dependent upon each individual. Now, some people have fear. Now, for no reason they will be afraid of things. Whereas not everybody is like that. So each person is different because each person is unique. Each person's loads are different. What we have carried forward is different. Then there are different parts of the human brain which affect the the emotions. Like we said, we talk of the two hemispheres. The two hemispheres in the human body. We all know about that. And these two hemispheres are how? What are they doing? The two hemispheres have different things. As we know, the left hemisphere is what? Is mathematical. It talks in verbal language. It talks of linguistic expressions. It talks of a sequential way of functioning. It talks of reasoning, logic. And then there is the right hemisphere, which is of abstract nature. The right hemisphere talks in terms of intuition. It talks in terms of understanding things in an inner light, in an emotional way. So we have these things, as we understand. These are two parts. And then we have the limbic system. The human emotions are normally related to the limbic system. Now this limbic system has got various parts. It is in the center of the brain, the limbic system. And as we understand, this limbic system has been possessed by us as a result of the evolutionary process. 200 million years ago, this limbic system was a part of those giant animals, the dinosaurs. So those dinosaurs had what? Those dinosaurs had a limbic system. Now that limbic system has come to us. So it is the most ancient system that our brain possesses. And this limbic system is therefore what? This limbic system is connected to emotions. And this limbic system has got various components. The hypothalamus is one. The thalamus is another. The amygdala is another one. Then hippocampus is another one. So this particular limbic system comprises of various parts. It has got the cingulate gyrus. Now these are the parts of that. And then what do? They have different functions. The amygdala is directly related to responding a stressful situation. And what is the function of the hypothalamus in that case? A sleep-wake cycle, the appetite. And many other hormones are secreted by hypothalamus through the pituitary. Now pituitary being the master gland, the pituitary becomes master gland with the support of these. The amygdala, the hypothalamus, and they in turn supply this thing to the pituitary, which influences all the lower glands. So we have this thing. Then we have the brain is divided into four parts. We have the frontal part of the brain, then the occipital part of the brain. Then we have what is known as the parietal part, which is called parietal lobes. Then we have temporal lobes. Now, these four parts again, the brain is divided into these four parts, and each of these lobes have different functions. So, our brain, and within this whole structure, there are millions of what is called nerve fibers, nerve cells. And these nerve fibers and nerve cells have a different story to tell us. We have discussed in great detail in our earlier lectures. But to just give you a more consolidated idea about how yoga psychology is related to all this. This is a unique thing. that we come to know. And how is that yoga psychology related to it? Then we come to the understanding of how prana, the 5 internal and 5 external vayus, or the pranic substances. What are those 5 internal vayus? That is prana, apan, saman, vayan, and what? Udan. These 5 vayus, the first pran is between the vocal cord and the navel. And between the navel and the anus is the apan vayu. Then saman vayu is at the navel, balancing the 2, pran and apan. Then udan vayu is controlling the blood circulation, the circulation of all the liquid factor, the blood circulation, the lymph flow, the flow, the control of the hormonal secretions is all done by udan vayu. And then we have the udan, which is controlling the vocal cord. So vayan is controlling the blood circulation, and udan is controlling the vocal cord. Then we have the 5 external vayus. They are nag, which helps us to jump and expand. Then we have kurm, which helps us in contracting the body. Then we have nag, kurm, krikar. Krikar helps us in yawning. And then we have the krikar, devdatta, which helps us in urination and passing the stool. Also helps us in thirst and hunger. And also then we have dhananjay, which is the last vayu, which is there, which leaves the body after death, after the human body dies and cremated. And then there is what is called pranendriya, the 11th one. This pranendriya is what? This pranendriya is, its seat is in the Anahata chakra. In the center of Anahata chakra, the pranendriya exists. And what is the function of the pranendriya? Pranendriya is the controlling vayu of the whole system. Because it is through pranendriya that the whole system is controlled. The pranendriya is not like the normal indriya, normal sensory or motor organ. It is not like that. It helps us in identifying hot and cold, soft and hard. It also tells us about the harshness or melodiousness of a voice. It also tells us if such a person is harsh or sweet. It tells us, it controls, it regulates. What? It regulates the afferent and efferent nerves. The sangya and agya nadis are controlled by pranendriya. That means, which in turn control all the nerves. That means the pranendriya controls all the nerves, all the nerve fibers. That means the whole brain has an integral system connected to the pranendriya. The pranendriya influences their function. And this pranendriya is very vital. There is no understanding of pranvayus and the pranendriya in the neurosciences. We have yet to come to this understanding. So this is another approach which yoga psychology has taken us to. And in this process we find that we are very integrated with the physical sciences. And the yoga sciences in turn take us to what is known as, where does it take us to? It takes us to the essential path which every human being must tread to enjoy bliss, to attain the whole purpose of being born as a human being. This is what it tells us. So what we realize at the end of the day, after understanding all this, is that the human understanding of yoga psychology ultimately takes us to that supreme goal of life through which we achieve the purpose of being born as a human being. The human beings are the most evolved beings in this universe, because they have a developed mind, and their developed mind and developed consciousness helps them in understanding their true nature and the purpose for being born as a human being. There are no other beings in the universe other than human beings who have been given this special thing. And all beings, for that matter, all animal, the entire animal kingdom is slowly advancing, evolving to this stage. There are certain animals which are actually in today's world are in such a situation that they are the ones who can also perform sadhana of a primary level. And some of those which can do is like the cows, the monkeys, the orangutan, the gorilla. They will be able to perform some primary spiritual practices if given a proper environment. And also many others like the dogs and the cats can also slowly, which have become pet today in our lives, and they are the ones, they will be able to take up spiritual life like human beings. And what is the purpose of all this? So the attainment of such a state means the end of all the sanskaras. What will happen when we attain the supreme goal of life? All the sanskaras will be served. That means we will not have the bondage of the sanskaras. We will be liberated from the bondage of sanskaras. That means we will be liberated from all kinds of bondages of time, place and person. The relativity will cease to exist for such an individual who has identified his mind, his or her mind, with supreme transcendentality. That alone is the goal of human life. We are born for that, to realize that in this very life. Namaskar.